Do you keep starting tracks but struggling to finish them? It's not happening because you lack creativity or missing knowledge. It's a lack of structure, direction, and the right mindset. And I know that because some of my clients had very little knowledge when they started, but they all finished the first track in less than 2 weeks of joining my course. Part of their success was sticking with the 4 habits I'm going to share with you in this video. So most producers start a track something like this, and tell me if I'm wrong. You sit down to make music. Sometimes you start by making a beat, some other times you're playing with some sounds. You might even be really inspired and lay down the idea pretty quickly. But after a few days, you lose that initial excitement. Your track starts to sound boring and you don't really know what else you can do with this track. Until eventually, you give up and you start a new one. Happened to you before? Think of producing a track like this. Imagine you are going on a road trip. So you go into your car feeling excited for the adventure ahead of you. You start driving, but you made a couple of wrong turns, you're kind of lost, and eventually you run out of petrol. Or gas if you're American. And the thing is like this. You started this trip without a clear destination in mind. So you got lost and eventually stopped. Do you see how this relates to your journey as a music producer? When me and my partner are planning a road trip, we look for what hikes are on the way, where we can stop for lunch, where's the camp with the best view, and how long it takes to drive between all of those points. So we just need to get in the car and enjoy the trip. This is what I teach my clients. And the results are amazing. When you sit down to produce, have a clear plan, know roughly what vibe you're going on with your track, and even plan each individual production session. So if you're making a bass that day, plan in advance for what synth to use and what type of bass and rhythm you're after. Forget about your goal of finishing a track and just focus on what you are doing in this production session. So the first habit is setting clear goals. The second habit is guaranteed to help you finish tracks consistently, and it's very easy to perform. But if you don't master it, you will become a chronic procrastinator, and it will affect other areas of your life too. I will explain in a bit. When one of my clients has fixed this habit, he went from loads of random, half-finished tracks over the past 2 years to finishing his first ever track in just 2 weeks. So imagine trying to get in shape, but you only go to the gym when you feel like it. Your progress will be slow and inconsistent, and you're most likely to give up when you don't see the results. What do you think is better for getting in shape? Exercising every now and then when you feel like it, or sticking with your routine also when it's really hard? When I told my client he had to practice every single day for at least 15 minutes, he made the most of that time. And to be honest, most days he found himself practicing for an hour or more, which helped him finish 3 tracks in just a few weeks. And whenever he fell out of the habit, he always admitted that it was a shame because he really enjoyed producing every day. So this is how you can maintain the habit. When I first started producing, I was honestly super lazy. I would rather sit on the sofa than make music. I knew that I needed to put way more time if I ever wanted to get good at producing music. But I just didn't know how to stay consistent. Then someone told me you have to make music every day. But that still wasn't enough. Then I discovered this simple mindset shift. You have to make music, especially on those days you don't feel like it. And here's why. Missing 1 day is fine. But once you skip 2 or more days, that's the beginning of a new habit. And that's when it gets really hard to get back on track. So this is what I started doing. On those days I wasn't motivated to work. I would still open my computer and just stare on the screen for 15 minutes without doing anything. And weirdly enough, that small habit made all the difference. Because when the day comes and you do feel inspired, you are already in the habit, and making real progress doesn't seem too hard. At the time, I actually finished 9 tracks in 6 months. So the second habit is produce every day, even when you don't feel motivated. The next habit is something I personally struggled with. Imagine you're trying to build an IKEA drawers, but your tools are all over the place. Some are not even in the bedroom. Every time you need a screwdriver, you have to search through drawers, wasting time and breaking your focus. It would take forever to finish, and you're most likely to give up. Wouldn't it make more sense if you had all of your tools in one spot and there was nothing around you other than the instructions, the tools, and the parts of the drawers you're trying to build? So why we are not doing this with music production? When I just started producing, I absolutely love making weird sounds. I remember one day sitting in my bedroom by the desk, working on some cool sound design until I came up with a sick sound. You know the feeling. I was super excited because I knew if I record the sound into my track, it's going to be the best track ever. But my MIDI controller was under the bed because my desk was full of crap, as I lived in a messy flat share. So I stood up, took the controller from under the bed, then realized I have nowhere to put it. By the time I cleared some space on my desk, I felt like I really needed a short break. You know exactly what happens next. Your environment directly affects your productivity. So it's important you create conditions that make it easy to produce music while having the least amount of resistance and distractions. So these days I have only a laptop and a plant on my desk. And in Ableton I have saved only the tools I actually use. All I need to do is just to sit down and produce and enjoy. So the third habit, and I know this is obvious, but it makes such a massive difference: having an organized workspace. The next habit could be the missing link between yourself and finishing tracks people actually want to listen to. I help your scene go from finishing a track every 3 months or so to finishing a track in just 3 weeks, which helped them get more DJ sets on a regular basis. When you're producing music, you might listen to certain elements of your track thousands of times before you're happy with it, right? Even Justice said so in the Never Ender episode with Mix with the Masters. The problem is, you're listening to a segment of the song in isolation. The listener doesn't care about that minor EQ change you were contemplating on for the last 30 minutes. So in the same way that you would cook a gourmet meal to your partner and you want them to taste it as well before you're sure it's ready, you want someone else to give you feedback for your music. And no, I'm not talking about validation. If someone listens to your track and saying, "Yeah, nice one," that's not feedback and it's not helpful. You need someone to give you constructive feedback with points for improvement. Now, imagine you sit down to produce music and you have a clear system for making every element of your track. You know exactly in what order to make each element, so finishing a track isn't a daunting task. And you can focus on being creative. And when you finish the track, you can just post your track in a community and ask for direct feedback on it. And other producers will give you feedback with improvement points. If that sounds like something you want to be part of, then check the link for my course in the description below. Well, unless you prefer to go through years of slow progress and experimenting and figure it all out by yourself, which is exactly what I did. But in the meantime, if you could learn one thing from the Beatles, deadmau5 and Lady Gaga, you would certainly make better music than most producers, right? That's exactly what I'm covering in the next video.